I never imagined my own daughter would lock me inside my own bedroom. But that's exactly what happened on a quiet Tuesday morning. The kind of morning where nothing feels dangerous, where sunlight comes in soft and harmless, where you trust the people in your house because they are your blood. Yet there I was, standing inside my bedroom, listening to the metallic click of the lock sliding into place, and realizing my daughter had trapped me. I'm glad you're here to hear this. I don't know how many people will believe me, but maybe you will. Maybe saying this out loud will help me understand how everything went so wrong. Before I tell you why she locked me in, before I tell you what she was really after, and before I tell you how I watched everything she did through a camera she never even knew existed, let me take you back. Because this story doesn't start with betrayal. Stories like mine never do. They start with love, blind trust, and the kind of parenting where you give everything because you think your child deserves more than you ever had. Let me start at the beginning, long before the lock clicked, long before secrets began to rot the foundation of our home. My daughter's name is Lena. She was my miracle baby, the one I had after 2 miscarriages and 8 years of trying. When she finally came into the world, I held her like she was made of glass. I whispered promises into her tiny ears, promises I truly intended to keep. I'll always protect you. I'll always trust you. I'll give you the life I never had. And for most of her childhood, I did. We lived in a modest house, nothing fancy, but warm. A house full of books I collected through the years. A house where the windows shook when heavy trucks passed. A house with a long hallway that always felt colder than the rest of the rooms. And at the very end of that hallway was my bedroom, a door that almost never closed because I believed a parent's heart should always stay open. My husband died young, when Lena was only 6. A heart attack. Quick, brutal, life-changing. For years, it was just my daughter and me, trying to build a new normal with 2 fewer hands and 1 broken heart. And we managed. We really did. Lena grew into a bright, confident young woman. Sharp-minded, independent, quick with laughter. Or at least, that's what I thought. Looking back now, I can see all the cracks. Not in her. No, never in her. The cracks were in my vision of her, the way I saw her through a mother's unconditional lens. I ignored things. I explained things away. I softened edges that were actually sharp. But at the time, none of that mattered. I adored her, and that was enough for me. What I didn't know, couldn't have known, is that she had begun to resent me years earlier. Quietly, slowly, subtly. Resentment doesn't scream at first. It whispers, soft enough for a mother to miss. But the day she locked me in my bedroom, that whisper became a full scream. It started around 9 a.m. I had just made tea. Lena had come home late the night before from a friend's place, as she always put it. She walked into my room with a calmness that now feels staged, a smoothness in her voice that I didn't recognize as rehearsed. "Mom, can you go inside your room for a moment?" she asked. I didn't even question it. I stepped inside, still holding my mug. She stood in the doorway, one hand behind her back. "Is something wrong?" I asked. She smiled, a tight smile. "No, I just need you to stay in here for a bit." And before I could respond, click, she locked the door from the outside. My first reaction wasn't fear. It was confusion. I placed the mug on the bedside table, walked to the door, and pressed my palm against it. "Lena, what are you doing?" Silence. Then footsteps, calm, steady, walking away. I felt a warm rush of panic in my chest. "Lena, open the door. This isn't funny." Still nothing. That's when the cold feeling inside me began to grow. A feeling I can still remember now, the kind that starts in your stomach and slowly climbs upward, reaching your throat, tightening it. But here's the part Lena never knew. Right there in that room, above the wardrobe, hidden behind an old picture frame, was a small camera. A camera I installed 20 years ago. A camera she didn't know existed. A camera that sent a live feed straight to my phone. I had put it there when my husband died. Not out of paranoia, but out of fear. Fear of being alone. Fear of break-ins. Fear of losing the last piece of safety I had. And over the years, it became something I forgot about. A silent guardian in a corner of the ceiling. Until the day it saved me. Because while I was locked in that room, helpless, confused, I saw everything she did. Everything. But we'll get to that. Before I show you the darkest part of this story, before I explain what she was really searching for in the house, I need to tell you what our life looked like right before this moment. Because locking me in wasn't random. It was the result of months, maybe years, of small changes I kept ignoring. Changes in her tone, changes in her eyes, changes in her habits. Things I brushed off as stress or adulthood. Maybe if I had paid attention earlier. Maybe if I had asked her harder questions. Maybe if I had listened more carefully. Maybe this story would be different. But the truth is, we never see betrayal clearly until it cuts us. And mine was just beginning. Locked in my own room, my daughter walking away, and me staring at the live camera feed, watching her make the first move in a plan I didn't yet understand. But soon, painfully soon, I would. And trust me, everything changed after that. Before everything spiraled into that moment, the lock, the panic, the silence, our home felt like a place where nothing terrible could ever happen. It's strange, isn't it? How a house can hold two completely different realities depending on the day, depending on the heart inside it. On most mornings, my home felt harmless, soft, almost sleepy in the way old places get when they've been lived in for decades. But on that Tuesday morning, it became a stage for a betrayal I never saw coming. To understand it properly, I need to take you back into my normal life, the life I had before I became the mother who got locked in her own bedroom. Our house wasn't big, but it always felt comfortable. White curtains that fluttered even when there was barely a breeze. The smell of old wooden cabinets whenever someone opened the kitchen drawers. A squeaky step on the staircase that I always meant to fix, but never did. And that living room sofa that had seen more conversations, tears, and laughter than I could ever count. Life wasn't perfect, but it had a rhythm, a soft, predictable rhythm that soothed me. Most mornings, I would wake up around 6:30, make tea, open the windows, let sunlight fill the rooms one by one. And for a long time, that was the closest thing I had to peace. Lena, my daughter, used to love mornings as a kid. She'd run down the stairs with messy hair and sleepy eyes, asking if we could have pancakes on a Tuesday, or why the birds outside liked singing louder on some days. I remember her laughter back then. It was full-bodied, like it came from her chest, not her throat. She had this way of grabbing my face with her tiny hands and saying, "Mommy, look at me, listen." And I always did. I listened to everything she ever said, even the parts that later turned into lies. But growing up changes children, and growing older changes parents. The distance that forms between the two, it happens silently, gradually, like dust settling in corners until suddenly it's everywhere. I guess I didn't notice when Lena started drifting away. Or maybe I noticed, but pretended it was normal. She got her first job at 19. She was proud, so proud that she insisted on buying me a new toaster even though ours still worked fine. She'd come home late some days, tired, hungry, still energetic enough to talk about her coworkers and their strange habits. But gradually, the stories stopped. The laughs shortened. She stopped asking me to stay up for her when she was late. She started living in her own bubble, a bubble I wasn't allowed inside anymore. Still, I didn't question it. Because mothers don't like to believe their children are slipping away. We tell ourselves, they are just busy. They are just stressed. They are just growing up. That's what I told myself too. I told myself everything except the truth, that my daughter was becoming someone I didn't recognize. Let me give you a picture of how our days looked in the months leading up to the incident. I would wake up early, make breakfast, simple things like toast, eggs, tea. Sometimes I'd leave a plate on the counter for her, even if she wasn't home. Habit, I guess. Love turns into habit. Lena would often return home late at night. She'd tiptoe in, quietly, as if she didn't want me to know she was back. Sometimes I'd hear her in the kitchen, opening the fridge, pouring water, reheating food. But I never heard her voice. Not the way I used to. We still spoke, but spoke feels like the wrong word. They were shallow exchanges, thin words, quick responses, no depth. Hi, Mom. How was work? Fine. Did you eat? Yes. Okay. Good night. We talked like strangers who shared an address. And still, I didn't press. I didn't pry. I thought giving her space was the best thing a mother could do. I didn't know that space can also become distance. And distance, if left unchecked, can turn into secrecy. One memory stands out sharply now, like a bright knife among dull forks. It happened 2 months before she locked me inside my bedroom. I was folding laundry in the living room when Lena walked in. She didn't notice me at first. She was pacing, holding her phone tight in her hand. No, listen, she whispered into the phone. I told you I'll handle it. She doesn't know anything. Just let me figure it out. Her voice, sharp, cold, almost irritated, didn't match the Lena I raised. I froze, not because she was whispering. Everyone whispers on the phone sometimes, but because of the words. She doesn't know anything. I knew instantly she meant me. Who else could she be talking about? But before my fear could turn into a question, she noticed me. Her face changed, fast, like a curtain being shut. Oh, hey Mom. She slid the phone into her pocket. Just talking to a friend. A friend. But she didn't smile. And she didn't offer more. She just walked past me, went upstairs, and closed her door. For the first time in years, I felt something in my stomach drop. It wasn't anger, and it wasn't sadness either. It was something heavier, a seed of doubt. But I still smoothed it away, just like every mother does. She's stressed, I told myself. She'll tell me when she's ready. But she never did. The other strange thing began happening around the same time. Lena started taking things from the house. Not stealing, no, not in the traditional sense. More like removing things quietly. Old photo frames, documents I hadn't looked at in ages, boxes from the attic that I didn't even remember packing. At first I assumed she was cleaning, decluttering, organizing. She liked doing that as a child. But then I noticed she wasn't throwing things away. She was keeping them. One night, when she didn't know I was awake, I saw her carrying several folders into her room. She moved fast, nervous, almost panicked. And when the hallway light reached her face, she looked terrified. It should have been a red flag. It should have made me ask questions. But I stayed quiet, because a part of me didn't want to know the answers. Our relationship wasn't cold, not completely. We still ate together once or twice a week when her schedule allowed. We sat at the dining table, her scrolling through her phone, me trying to pretend everything was normal. Sometimes she would ask me a question about the past. Harmless things, on the surface. When did Dad buy this house? Did he leave anything behind, like investments? When I was young, where did you keep important documents? I answered without thinking. Why wouldn't I? A mother trusts her child. But slowly, I felt a strangeness in her curiosity. Her questions weren't sentimental. They were targeted, like she was searching for something specific. Still, I convinced myself it was nothing. We lie to ourselves in order to protect the people we love. We don't want to think darkness could grow inside the same heart we once held in our arms. 2 weeks before the locking incident, another moment stands out. I woke up one night to the sound of drawers opening, fast, one after another. I walked into the hallway and saw Lena standing at the bottom of the staircase, breathing hard, gripping something in her hand. She didn't notice me at first. Lena, I whispered. She jumped, almost dropping what she was holding. Oh, Mom, sorry. I was just looking for my charger. But what she held wasn't a charger. It was one of my old journals, one I hadn't opened since Lena was a baby. I reached out to touch it. She flinched. Why do you have this? I asked gently. She swallowed hard. No reason. I just found it near the cabinet. Good night. She rushed upstairs without waiting for my response. That journal had nothing valuable in it. Just old thoughts, memories, parenting notes. But the way she grabbed it, the way she protected it, the way she avoided my eyes, it lit a small, cold spark in my mind. Something was wrong. Something had been wrong for a long time. But I still didn't imagine she'd hurt me. Not Lena. Not the girl who used to hold my hand crossing every street. Not the girl who cried the day she lost her favorite teddy bear. Not the girl who promised, when she was 5, "Mommy, I'll never leave you." No mother believes her child would ever turn against her. Until they do. The morning she locked me in, all those small warning signs, the whispers, the late nights, the missing documents, the strange questions, they all came together in a single, brutal realization. She wasn't distancing herself. She was preparing. Preparing for something that required me out of the way. Preparing for something I was never meant to find out. And I should have trusted my instinct the moment I saw the look in her eyes, the look that appeared too quickly and disappeared even quicker. A look that wasn't sadness, wasn't stress, wasn't frustration. It was calculation. Cold, quiet calculation. The kind you only understand when it's too late. With me sitting in that locked room, replaying every small warning sign I ignored, realizing they weren't random moments. They were clues. Clues pointing toward a truth my daughter had been hiding for years. A truth I was finally, painfully, about to uncover through a camera she didn't know existed. The moment the lock clicked, something inside me shifted. It wasn't a sudden panic. It wasn't anger. It was something quieter, a slow, creeping uneasiness that felt like standing in a dim room where the walls are too close and the air is too still. I pressed my hand against the door. The wood felt cold, colder than usual. "Lena." I called again. Nothing. The silence outside wasn't accidental. It felt intentional, designed, controlled. That's when the uneasiness turned into a thin line of fear threading through my chest. I pulled my phone from my pocket, my hands shaking just enough that the screen didn't unlock at first. When it finally did, I tapped the old, almost forgotten, camera app. The one linked to the hidden device in the corner of my bedroom ceiling. Most people wouldn't think to check a camera from 20 years ago. But I had kept it running, mostly because I never disabled it. Technology like that doesn't ask for attention, it just continues existing quietly, waiting. The feed loaded. A grainy, slightly angled view of the hallway came into focus. And there she was, my daughter, standing perfectly still in the corridor, just outside my bedroom door. Not moving, not trying to leave, just standing. Her shoulders were tense. Her head was tilted slightly toward my door, as if she was listening to my breathing through the wood. And her hand, the same hand that once held my fingers on her first day of school, was still resting on the lock. I froze. She stayed like that for a full 5 seconds. Then she pulled her hand away, exhaled shakily, and walked toward the living room. Not rushed, not guilty, just determined. It was the expression of someone who believed they had a mission. Someone who believed they had a right to do what they had done. That look, steady, cold, almost rehearsed, was the first real crack in the story I had written about her in my mind. But it wasn't the only one. I turned up the phone volume, careful not to make a sound. The camera had no audio, but I didn't need sound to understand body language. I watched her enter the living room and go straight toward the bookshelf, specifically the middle shelf where I kept important documents. Insurance papers, old receipts, property deeds, letters from my husband after he passed. She knelt down and started going through the drawers underneath. At first, it looked innocent, searching, checking, but the way her hands moved, rapid, precise, impatient, it didn't match innocence. It matched urgency, like she knew exactly what she was looking for, like she had planned this. My heart thumped heavily in my chest. I wasn't just locked in my room. I was being kept out, pushed aside, excluded from something. I wanted to call her name, to scream, to demand an explanation, but instinct told me not to. Instinct told me to watch quietly, because whatever she was doing, she hadn't locked me in to protect me. She had locked me in to stop me. As she searched through the drawers, I saw her pull out one of my old binders, the one containing everything from financial statements to hospital bills from the year my husband died. She flipped through it fast, too fast to be reading. She was checking for something missing, or something hidden. A small wave of nausea hit me, because suddenly all her questions over the past months made sense. Not emotionally, but logically. When did Dad buy the house? Where did you keep his investments? Did he leave anything behind? Where do you store important documents? She hadn't been curious. She had been preparing for this moment. And I had answered every one of her questions so casually, so trustingly, like a mother who couldn't imagine her child would ever weaponize her own words. I watched her place the binder aside and open another drawer, the one with the old metal lock that had been broken for years. Inside it was a wooden box. My husband's box. He had given it to me a year before he died, telling me in a soft, tired voice, "Whatever happens, keep this safe." I hadn't opened it in decades, not out of fear, but out of respect. It wasn't my memory box. It was his, and Lena knew it existed. But I never told her what was inside. I never told anyone. When Lena pulled the box out, with hands steady and eyes sharp, I felt my stomach twist. She wasn't stumbling on secrets. She was hunting them. Suddenly, she stopped. Her shoulders rose and fell with a deep breath. She placed the box on the floor, and then she whispered something I couldn't hear. But I could read the shape of her mouth as she said it. "Where is it?" "Where is what?" My chest tightened, because for the first time, it didn't feel like she was looking for something sentimental or nostalgic. It felt like she was looking for something valuable, something hidden, something she believed belonged to her, and something she believed I was keeping from her. I watched her lift the box and shake it gently, as if listening for a sound. Nothing. She opened it. The lid creaked. She stayed inside for a long second, long enough for her face to change. Not into confusion, not disappointment, but anger. Cold, rising anger. Whatever she expected to find, it wasn't there. She closed the box sharply, stood up, and looked around the living room as if scanning for clues. And then she said another word, one that punched the air out of my lungs even through a silent video feed. "Lie." She said it like a fact, like a confirmation. Lie. My husband's promise, my story about the box, something from her childhood. Was the lie mine? Or did she think it was his? The question wrapped around my throat like a cold hand. Then something else happened, something tiny, almost forgettable, but painfully important. As she walked past the hallway shelf going toward the kitchen, she brushed her hand against the bottom of the wall. A quick, habitual motion. It wasn't random. It wasn't accidental. It was something she had done before. And it was the same spot where the faint outline of a loose tile existed, a tile only two people had ever known about. Me and my husband. And we had never told anyone. Not even Lena. But she touched it like someone who knew. Someone who was checking it. Someone who had checked it before. A sharp dread lit inside me. How long had she been searching? How long had she been waiting for a morning I'd be vulnerable enough to trap? How long had she suspected there was something hidden behind that tile? And most importantly, how did she know? The fear was no longer soft or creeping. It was rising. Fast. I zoomed in on the living room camera feed. Lena paced back and forth now, hands trembling slightly, breath uneven. She was talking to herself, her mouth moving silently. I focused on her lips. 3 words repeated several times. "It has to be here." Over and over, like a mantra, like an obsession. She walked back to the wooden box and slammed it on the sofa. Then she threw open the cabinet beneath the TV, scattering old papers across the carpet. She wasn't being careful anymore. Her movements had turned frantic, desperate. And desperation is never random. It comes from knowledge, from expectation, from belief. Something, or someone, had told her there was something inside this house. Something worth looking for. Something worth lying for. Something worth locking her own mother inside a bedroom for. My pulse hammered in my ears as I watched her walk up to the attic ladder and pull it down. She climbed up fast. Not curious, not exploring, but determined. And in that moment, one overwhelming realization hit me. Whatever she was searching for, she believed it was rightfully hers. But it wasn't. And the fact that she was so convinced it existed meant only one thing. Someone had fed her a story. Someone had told her a version of the past I didn't even know she had heard. Someone had whispered something powerful enough to turn my daughter against me. And as I stared at the empty hallway outside my locked room, one terrifying thought lodged itself into my mind. Maybe this betrayal didn't start with her. Maybe it started with someone else. Someone from my past. Someone who knew a secret I didn't even know I was keeping. With my daughter tearing through the attic like a woman searching for treasure, and me locked in a room wondering which part of my life had been rewritten without my knowledge. Because the truth wasn't just hidden. It was about to erupt. The moment Lena disappeared into the attic, the house changed. It wasn't the sounds. Those were faint, distant, muffled by insulation and wood. It was the feeling. The kind of feeling that crawls under your skin because you suddenly realize you're not watching a confused child. You're watching someone who knows exactly what they want. My hands trembled as I held the phone. The camera feed was grainy, but it was enough to show her shadow moving across the attic beams, the boxes being dragged, the dust falling like pale snow. She wasn't exploring. She was digging, searching, expecting, and I still had no idea what for. But that would change soon. Too soon. As I watched her on the screen, my mind began stitching pieces together, pieces I had ignored or softened. The late-night whispering on the phone, the missing documents, the strange questions, the anger when she opened the wooden box. And then a memory hit me so suddenly, so violently, that I had to sit down. 2 years ago. A call. A man's voice on the line. I didn't know him. Didn't recognize the number. "Are you Lena's mother?" he had asked. "Yes." And then he said something I dismissed as a scam, something ridiculous, unbelievable. He said, "I need to talk to her about her father's holdings. There are unresolved accounts in her name." I had laughed bitterly, thinking it was some cheap trick. "My husband didn't have holdings," I'd replied. "We barely had savings." The man paused. Then he said, "Your husband's record shows something else." I had hung up, blocked the number, and forgotten about it. Oh, I forced myself to forget. Because the idea that my husband, my sweet, tired, overworked husband, had kept secrets, it was too painful to even consider. But now, watching Lena tearing through the attic with urgency burning in her movements, that phone call didn't feel like a scam anymore. It felt like a clue I ignored, a clue someone else didn't. Someone must have contacted Lena. Someone must have told her a story I wasn't ready to hear. And she believed them, more than she believed me. Up in the attic, she finally found something. I saw her body freeze. Her shadow stiffened. Then she kneeled down and reached for a small, dust-covered metal box in the corner. A box I hadn't touched in 20 years. My breath caught in my throat. I remembered that box, vividly, because it was the last thing my husband touched before he collapsed in the kitchen all those years ago. I had left it in the attic because opening it felt like opening a wound. I never looked inside. I couldn't. But Lena took it like she'd been looking for it forever. She held it close to her chest, brushing dust off with her sleeve. There was no hesitation. She knew this box was important. She had known even before finding it. Which meant someone must have told her. Someone must have known about it. Someone other than me. A sickness twisted through my stomach. This wasn't just a search. This was a hunt. A hunt for something my husband left behind without telling me. And Lena thought I had hidden it. She thought I had lied to her. That's why she locked me in. Not out of cruelty, but out of certainty. A certainty I didn't understand yet. She carried the box down from the attic and placed it on the living room floor. I watched, helpless, from behind the locked bedroom door and through the camera feed. She didn't open it right away. Instead, she stayed at it. Her breathing was heavy. She wiped sweat from her forehead. Then she whispered something, her lips forming a sentence that made my heart drop. "Please let this be true. Not real. Not valuable. Not worth it. True. Someone had told her a truth about her father. A truth she wanted more than she feared what it might destroy. She opened the box slowly, her face illuminated by the faint light coming from the window. She lifted the lid, and her expression broke open, but not with joy. Something like confusion. Shock. Fear. She pulled out a stack of letters tied with a rubber band, then a small brown envelope, then a folded sheet of paper, and finally a thin, black notebook. She laid everything out on the floor. Her hands shook as she opened the letters first. The camera angle didn't let me see the writing, but I could see her face. With each page she read, her eyes changed, from anger to disbelief, from disbelief to devastation, from devastation to something darker. A tear rolled down her cheek, not one of sadness, one of betrayal. Then she said another sentence under her breath. You lied to me. Both of you lied to me. Both of us? My throat tightened. What lie? What story had she been told? I watched helplessly as she opened the brown envelope next. A few folded papers fell out, official-looking, thin, printed with seals. She scanned them quickly. Her lips parted slightly, like she was repeating something silently to herself. Then she froze. Her entire body stilled. She stared at one particular sheet, unmoving. For 10 whole seconds, she didn't blink. And then she whispered, "Oh my God." The kind of oh my God that isn't surprise. It's realization. Heavy, life-altering realization. She pressed the paper to her chest, rocking slightly, her breath shallow, her eyes glossy. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone shaking in my hands, whispering uselessly to myself. What is it, Lena? What did you find? But of course she couldn't hear me. She was too deep inside a truth that had been hidden from her. A truth I didn't even know existed. She reached for the black notebook. My husband's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. He rarely wrote, but when he did, every letter leaned slightly left, like the words were holding each other up. She flipped through page after page, her eyes narrowing, her jaw tightening. And then, she closed the notebook slowly, as if closing it made the truth real. She stared forward, motionless, and in that silence, the kind that fills a house when a truth finally emerges, I felt a cold certainty settle in my bones. My husband had kept a secret, a big one he meant for her but not for me, one he hid so deeply he must have feared something. And someone else knew. Someone else had told my daughter before she ever came to me. Someone else had fed her a version of her father I had never known. Lena stood up abruptly. She left everything scattered on the floor and walked toward the staircase, her steps fast, uneven, desperate. She went straight to my room. I saw her approach through the camera, her shadow coming closer, the handle turning slightly, stopping. Locked, just like she left it. She leaned her forehead against the door. I could almost feel the heat of her anger through the wood. You should have told me, she whispered. Her voice cracked. It wasn't rage. It wasn't hatred. It was heartbreak. You should have told me the truth. Truth about what? My breath caught in my chest. There were secrets between my husband and me. Yes, small ones. Struggles we didn't want our daughter to bear. Pain we tried to shield her from. But nothing like this. Whatever she discovered wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't a misinterpretation. It was a secret with weight. A secret with consequences. A secret someone else weaponized. Because the expression on her face wasn't confusion anymore. It was betrayal sharpened into purpose. She wasn't just searching for truth. She was searching for proof of her father's hidden life. And she thought I had known all along. She walked back downstairs and returned to the pile of papers. With shaky fingers, she picked up the folded sheet she had reacted to earlier. And this time, she held it up close to her face, reading it slowly, mouthing each word. Her eyes widened. Her body went still, and she collapsed to her knees. Collapsed, not like someone overwhelmed, like someone who had just found out their entire life was built on a crack. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. Not angry, not blaming, just broken. And the worst part, the part that sliced through me like a blade, was realizing this. She wasn't devastated because of me. She was devastated because she believed her father had lied to her for years, and that I had continued that lie. Without knowing, without understanding, without meaning to. My daughter was drowning in a truth I had never been given. And as she held that piece of paper against her heart, whispering, "Why didn't anyone tell me?" I knew. The lowest emotional point of this story had just begun. Because the truth wasn't only destroying her, it was about to destroy everything between us. With Lena shattered on the floor, holding a truth that redefines her entire life, and me locked in a room, powerless, watching my daughter break over secrets I never knew existed. For a long moment, all I could do was sit on the edge of my bed, holding the phone as if tightening my grip on it would somehow pull Lena out of her pain. But the truth was sharper than my instinct to comfort her. I couldn't comfort her. I couldn't reach her. I couldn't even leave the room. I had become a witness to my own daughter's heartbreak, not a participant in it. Watching her cry from behind a locked door was the closest I'd ever come to feeling completely powerless. But somewhere beneath the shock, beneath the fear, beneath the rising helplessness, a quiet shift began inside me. A slow-burning resolve. A clarity I didn't know I had. A new awareness that the mother who stepped into this bedroom an hour ago was not the same mother sitting here now. I wasn't just protecting myself anymore. I was preparing to uncover what had torn my daughter apart. And for the first time since the lock clicked, my breath steadied. Because something became painfully clear. If I wanted to save our relationship, I had to learn the truth before she destroyed herself with it. I stared at the ceiling, at the tiny hidden camera that had silently watched 2 decades of our lives pass by, unnoticed. I had installed it during the worst time of my life, back when loneliness was louder than reason and fear was a constant companion. But now, in some strange, ironic twist, that old piece of technology had become my only connection to the world outside this room. My only link to my daughter. My only window into the truth. I set the phone down and closed my eyes. The images replayed behind my eyelids. Lena ripping open boxes in the attic. Her hands shaking. Her eyes widening with disbelief. Her knees hitting the floor. Her voice whispering, "You should have told me. You should have told me." The words struck deeper the more I heard them in my head. Told her what? I didn't know. That was the unbearable part. My daughter believed I had lied, that I had chosen silence over honesty. But the truth was painfully simple. I couldn't tell her the truth, because I didn't know it myself. I took a slow breath and began reconstructing everything from the lost hour, piece by piece. The wooden box, the letters, the official documents, my husband's notebook, the small envelope that made her collapse. Everything pointed toward one thing. There was something about her father I never knew, and she believed that I had known. That realization hurt more than the locked door, because betrayal is one thing, but being misunderstood by your own child, being judged for a secret you didn't even know existed, that's a different kind of pain. One that cuts deeper, one that lingers, one that forces you to act. I opened my eyes and stayed at the door. I didn't shout. I didn't bang. I didn't plead. Those were emotional reactions. What I needed now was strategy. My daughter wasn't just acting out. She wasn't throwing a tantrum. She wasn't even being reckless. Her actions had purpose. She locked me in because she believed she needed to, which meant someone had filled her head with enough certainty to override her conscience. Someone had targeted her. Someone had told her things about her father, things that pushed her into obsession. And the more I thought about it, the clearer it became. This wasn't Lena's betrayal. This was someone else's manipulation. Someone who knew about the box. Someone who knew the location of that attic tin. Someone who knew there were papers hidden, papers even I had never seen. Someone connected to my husband's past. The past I thought I fully knew. Clearly, I didn't. My heartbeat slowed into a steady, rhythmic thud. Not panic. Not fear. Purpose. I wasn't going to sit in this room like a helpless prisoner. I wasn't going to let my daughter drown in half-truths fed by someone with unknown intentions. And I wasn't going to wait for answers to fall from the sky. If she wouldn't open the door, I'd find another way out. But before that, I needed to understand her mindset. So I turned the camera feed back on. Lena sat on the living room floor now, the papers spread around her like a shattered constellation. Her knees were pulled to her chest. Her forehead rested on her arms. Her body was shaking in small, shallow tremors. But the most painful part wasn't the way she held herself. It was the expression on her face when she lifted her head. Not anger, not suspicion, just deep, raw hurt. The kind of hurt you only feel when the foundation of your identity has been ripped out from beneath you. She picked up one paper, the one she kept pressing to her chest, and read it again. Her mouth moved, sounding out the words slowly, deliberately, like she didn't trust her own voice. Then she clutched her head and whispered something that made my heart shatter. I don't know who I am anymore. Not I don't know what I found. Not I don't know what he did. Not I don't know what this means. No, she said, I don't know who I am. That meant whatever she discovered wasn't about money or inheritance or property. It was about her identity, her origin, her father, her place in this world. A truth so heavy that it broke the one thing she always believed in, her story, her childhood, her family, me. And I, locked away, uninformed, powerless, had no choice but to accept that the next step wasn't about protecting myself. It was about protecting her. From the truth, from the lie, from whoever had fed it to her, from the consequences, from herself. And the only way to do that was to get out of this room. I stood up. My legs trembled slightly, not from fear, but from the sudden shift into control. The door was old, wooden, painted over several times. Not strong. I walked closer and inspected the lock. It wasn't a deadbolt, just a simple turn lock designed to keep privacy, not hold someone captive. I exhaled slowly. Breaking it was possible, but breaking it would make noise. Noise would alert Lena. And if she saw me trying to escape, she would think the worst. She would think I was hiding something, running from something, trying to prevent her from learning more. I couldn't risk that. So instead of breaking the door, I stepped back and shifted into a different mindset. I didn't need to force my way out. I needed to prepare, plan, observe, understand. Before I confronted her, I needed the full truth. Not the version in her head. Not the version someone else whispered. Not the version in the box. The real version. And for the first time since she locked me in, I felt calm. Because I finally understood my role. I wasn't trapped. I was watching, learning, waiting. Sometimes the most powerful moment in a war isn't the strike. It's the stillness before it. The quiet sharpened edge of clarity. The steadying of the heart before the truth breaks open. I sat back on the bed and watched her through the camera. She was collecting the letters now, placing them in piles, one for my husband's handwriting, one for the official documents, one for the envelopes. She moved with the precision of someone assembling a puzzle she desperately needed to complete. And in that moment, I saw something I hadn't seen before. She wasn't driven by anger. She was driven by fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of the truth. Fear of losing the father she thought she knew. Fear of losing the mother she believed had lied to her. And fear, deep, consuming fear, makes people do things they never thought they'd do. Like locking their own mother inside a bedroom. The realization softened something inside me. Not forgiveness. Not yet. But understanding. She wasn't my enemy. She was my daughter. A child trying to navigate a truth too big for her to hold alone. And I was going to help her carry it. Even if I had to break the lock. Even if I had to confront ghosts from my past. Even if I had to read every letter her father wrote. Even if it meant learning a truth that could change everything I believed about my marriage. Because that's what mothers do. We walk into storms our children can't weather alone. Even when they shut us out. Even when they lock the door. At the calm before the storm, with the narrator shifting from helplessness to deliberate resolve, preparing for the truth and what she must do next. The moment came faster than I expected. 1 second I was watching Lena through the camera feed. The next, she stood up. Not slowly, not shakily, with purpose. She wiped her face. Her eyes hardened. Her breathing steadied. Then she picked up the notebook, the letters, the envelope. She held all of it like ammunition. And she walked straight toward my bedroom door. My heartbeat spiked. This was the moment. The storm finally reaching the walls around me. She placed her palm on the door. Not softly, almost accusingly. "Mom," she said. Her voice wasn't weak anymore. It was steady, controlled. "Shut. Open the door." My breath caught. She wasn't asking. She was commanding. But the door was locked from the outside. She knew that. And yet she waited, as if she wanted to see what I would do. For the first time, I spoke quietly, not out of fear, but clarity. "Lena, please unlock it." Silence. Then the lock clicked. Once. Twice. Slowly. The door swung open. And there she was. My daughter. Red eyes. Tear-stained face. Hands trembling slightly but trying hard to appear strong. She didn't step aside. She stood in the doorway like a judge. Between us lay 20 years of trust. And one truth I didn't yet understand. She looked at me, really looked at me. And the first words out of her mouth hit like a slap. "How could you hide this from me?" Short, blunt, direct. A blade disguised as a question. My voice cracked. "I didn't hide anything. I swear. Don't lie to me." Her tone sliced through the air. Cold. Certain. She threw the papers onto my bed. Letters. Documents. That envelope. The notebook landed last. "Read it," she said. Her voice shook for the first time. Not with sadness. With rage barely held together. My hands trembled as I picked up the envelope. The same one she had clutched like it carried her life in it. Inside was a thin sheet of paper. An official form. I unfolded it. My eyes scanned the lines. And the blood drained from my face. Because the truth hit harder than anything I imagined. It was a paternity document. Not mine. Not hers. Her father's. A paternity test. Dated months before Lena was born. And the result. Probability of paternity, 0%. The room tilted. The floor felt unstable. The air thickened. I could barely swallow. This wasn't possible. Wasn't real. Wasn't. "Dad wasn't my father," she whispered. Her voice broke again. A small, fragile sound. "I found this. And all those letters. And his notebook. And none of it matches anything you ever told me." I opened my mouth to speak. Nothing came out. Because nothing made sense. "He wrote about it," she continued, stepping forward. "In these letters. In that notebook. He knew. He knew I wasn't his." Tears filled her eyes again. "He wrote that he was going to tell me when I turned 18. He wrote that you begged him to keep it secret. He wrote that you lied to him, and then to me." My throat closed. "Lena, I didn't." "He said he forgave you. But he didn't want any more lies. He wrote that I deserved the truth." Her voice cracked painfully, and I never got it. Before I could speak, she struck again. "So tell me, right now, who is my real father?" The question hit like a hammer. Raw, direct, demanding. I stayed at her, my mouth open, my hands shaking. "I don't know," I whispered. Her face contorted. In disbelief. In rage. In heartbreak. "What do you mean you don't know?" Her voice rose. Loud. Sharp. Accusatory. "I mean I don't know, Lena." The words ripped out of me. She froze. Completely. No movement. No sound. Only shock. Real shock. The kind only truth can create. "I never hid a father's name," I said, breath shaking. Because there was no name to hide. Her eyebrows knit together. "What are you talking about?" I inhaled sharply. This was the moment I had spent years burying under silence. Not because it was a secret, but because it was a scar. "When I got pregnant with you," I whispered, "I was assaulted." The word hung in the air like a blade dropping point first. Lena's body stiffened. Her breath hitched. I swallowed the pain rising in my throat. I didn't know who did it. I never got justice. I never found the man. Your father, your dad, the man who raised you, he took me in after it happened. He loved you before you even existed. Her eyes widened. No anger now. only devastation. He knew, I continued softly. He always knew. He married me anyway. He raised you anyway. He gave you his name. He gave you his love. You were his daughter in every way that mattered. She stumbled backward. 1 step. 2 steps. Her legs shook. No. It's the truth, I whispered. I never lied to you. I never hid anything from you. There was just nothing to tell. Your father, your real father, was a monster. And the man who raised you was the only good thing I found after that nightmare. Lena covered her mouth with her hands. Tears poured down her face. I thought you lied, she choked out. I thought you hid it. I thought you didn't trust me. I thought. Her voice broke so violently that she couldn't finish. She collapsed onto the floor, hands on the carpet, body trembling, and for the first time since she locked me in, I stepped forward, slowly, gently, quietly. I kneeled in front of her. She didn't push me away. She didn't flinch. She didn't speak. She just cried. Cried from the center of her chest, the place where the soul lives. Cried like a child who realized the villain she feared never existed. Cried like someone who had built an entire narrative around a lie someone else had fed her. A lie meant to tear us apart. I placed my hands on her arms. She didn't resist. Her tears soaked into my shoulder the moment she leaned forward, breaking, shaking, collapsing into me. I held her, tight, steady, present, because this wasn't anger anymore. It was grief. The grief of losing the father she thought she knew. The grief of learning her origin wasn't love, it was violence. The grief of realizing the man who raised her was the only real father she ever had. And beneath that grief was something else. Guilt. Deep, shattering guilt. She whispered through tears. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I shouldn't have. I didn't know. I thought you. Her words dissolved into sobs. I stroked her hair gently. It's okay, I whispered. You're here now, and that's all that matters. Her shoulders shook harder, and then, between sobs, she said the sentence that nearly broke me. I thought you locked the truth away, but I'm the one who locked you away instead. Silence, just breathing, crying, heartbeats falling back into rhythm, and finally, after what felt like hours, she lifted her head. Mom. Her voice was a fragile whisper. I don't know who told me those lies. I inhaled sharply. The real enemy, the real source, the real betrayal. It wasn't Dad, she whispered. He would never hurt me. Her eyes met mine. Someone else knew. Someone else wanted me to find this. Someone else told me everything. Her fingers tightened around my arm. Mom, someone else has been in our life this whole time. The truth hit like lightning. A third person, watching, knowing, manipulating, feeding her half-truths. Someone from the past. Someone tied to the paternity test. Someone who knew more than both of us. The real confrontation hadn't happened yet, but it was coming. Fast. After the storm ended, after the sobbing, after the shaking, after the truth finally cut through the lies, a stillness settled over the house. Not peace. Not yet. Just stillness. The kind that comes after a hurricane tears through a coastline, leaving everything quiet in a way that feels unfamiliar and almost wrong. Lena and I stayed on the floor for several minutes, both of us exhausted, both of us empty, both of us learning how to breathe again. When she finally pulled back, her eyes were swollen and red. Her hair stuck to her cheeks. Her breathing was uneven, but there was something different in her face now. Not anger, not accusation, not suspicion, just a tired, vulnerable softness. The softness of someone who finally saw the truth beneath the wreckage. She wiped her cheeks with the back of her hand, and when she spoke, her voice was thin, like it had been scraped raw. Mom, I didn't know. I nodded slowly. I know. She swallowed, her throat tightening around an apology that kept breaking apart before reaching her lips. I didn't mean to hurt you, she whispered. I thought you were keeping him from me. I thought you didn't trust me enough to tell me the truth. My heart ached at the words. I always trusted you, I said softly. I just didn't have a truth to tell. She closed her eyes. Another tear escaped. A single one this time. Not a sob. Not a breakdown. Just a quiet release. She leaned her head against the edge of the bed and rested her hand on my knee, as if anchoring herself to something solid after being tossed around by waves she didn't see coming. For a while, neither of us spoke. We didn't need to. The silence wasn't tense anymore. It was healing. Two broken pieces trying to fit back together. Eventually, Lena exhaled and sat back on the floor, pulling her knees up to her chest again. "What do we do now?" she asked quietly. The question carried so much weight, it felt like the room itself inhaled with her. I looked at her gently. "We face it," I said. "The truth. Your father's letters. The notebook. Everything." She shook her head slowly. "I don't know if I can." "You don't have to do it alone." Her eyes lifted toward mine. Confused. Hopeful. Afraid. "I locked you in," she whispered. "As if I was trapping you." "You thought you were chasing the truth," I said. "And you were." She lowered her gaze. "But I treated you like an enemy." I placed a hand on her arm. "You're my daughter. You could never be my enemy." Her lips trembled. Another tear. Then she nodded slowly, accepting a forgiveness she didn't yet know how to give herself. We gathered the letters and documents from the floor together. Not hurried. Not frantic. Carefully. Gently. As if touching them too quickly might rip the fragile stability we had just rebuilt. Some papers shook slightly in Lena's hands, not from fear anymore, but from exhaustion. She had cried out an entire lifetime's worth of confusion. Now she was just tired. When everything was in a neat stack again, she looked at me with a trembling breath. "Can we read them together?" The question landed softly but heavily. For years, she had been drifting away. For months, she had been hiding. For weeks, she had been searching. For hours, she had been breaking. But this was the first true request she had made as a daughter in a very long time. "Of course," I said. She sat beside me on the bed, close but not fully touching. Close enough, though. Close enough to feel the warmth return. We opened the first letter. Her father's handwriting sprawled across the page, slanted, soft, tired. I remembered the way he used to grip pens too tightly, leaving dents in the paper. The letter wasn't angry. It wasn't panicked. It wasn't blaming. It was gentle. It spoke about love, about fear, about responsibility, about wanting to protect her from pain, the same pain he watched me carry every day. Lena's eyes filled again. "He loved me," she whispered. "He adored you," I said. She nodded, swallowing hard. For the first time, the grief she felt wasn't violent. It was quiet, soft, like she was letting herself understand something she had resisted seeing all her life. She flipped through the notebook next. Page after page filled with thoughts he never spoke aloud. Notes about her first steps, her first school day, her drawings on the fridge. Moments he wanted her to remember someday. Moments he feared she would lose when he was gone. A heavy ache pulsed in her chest. "He wanted to tell me," she whispered. "But he didn't know how." "He didn't want to break you," I said. "He didn't want you to feel unwanted or unsafe." She looked at me. "And you?" My throat tightened. "I wanted to forget," I said honestly. "Not because of you, but because of what happened to me. I didn't want that darkness attached to your name. I didn't want the first story of your existence to be a nightmare." Her breast wavered. "You weren't a mistake," I whispered. "You were my miracle. And he chose you. Every day, he chose you." Her shoulders relaxed. For the first time that entire day, she didn't look shattered. She looked human again. Raw. Hurting. Healing. After we read the last page, Lena leaned back against the headboard and let out a long, shaky breath. The kind a person releases when the truth stops choking them and starts settling into place. "I still don't know who told me," she said quietly. "I still don't know why someone would want to hurt us like that." "We'll figure it out together," I replied. She nodded softly. Then her expression shifted. Not angry, not scared, just sad. "Mom." "Yes." I really thought Dad left something behind for me. Something secret. Something important. I reached out and took her hand gently. He did, I said. It wasn't money, or property, or documents. She looked down at our intertwined fingers. What was it then? Love, I whispered. Enough love to raise a child who wasn't his. Enough love to forgive the pain that brought her into this world. Enough love to make you his. Her chin trembled. Her tears fell silently again, but this time they weren't tears of confusion or betrayal. They were release, relief, truth settling where lies had lived. And for the first time since the morning, she leaned her head on my shoulder, not collapsing, not shaking, not panicking, just resting, letting herself be held, letting herself be my daughter again. We stayed like that for a long while. The house was quiet, the tension gone, the shadows softer. At some point, Lena whispered, I don't know if things will be the same after this. No, I said gently. They won't. She closed her eyes. But they can still be good, I added. She nodded. Slowly, deliberately. I want to try, she whispered. I want to fix this. We will, I said softly. One step at a time. When she finally stood up, she walked to the door slowly, almost shyly, and turned back. There was guilt in her eyes, deep, aching guilt, but there was something else too. Gratitude. Mom, thank you for not giving up on me. I never will. She gave a small, tired smile, one that looked like it hadn't been used in a long time. Then she left the room, not running away, not slamming doors, not hiding, just stepping out. And for the first time since the lock clicked that morning, I walked out behind her, freely, openly, together. The truth had broken us, but now it was preparing to build us again. When the truth finally settled into our home, not loudly, not violently, but gently, like dust floating down after a long, rattling storm, I realized something I had spent years avoiding. Secrets don't stay buried. Not the good ones, and not the painful ones either. Some truths wait for the right moment. Some wait for the right courage. And some, like the one my daughter discovered, wait for the right kind of breaking. Because breaking is not always destruction. Sometimes it's the beginning of clarity. The next morning, our house felt different. Not heavier, not darker, just honest. The kind of honesty that hurts first, but heals slowly, quietly, like a bruise fading one shade at a time. Lena and I sat at the kitchen table with tea cooling between our hands. She didn't look at me with suspicion anymore. She didn't look through me. She didn't look away. She looked to me, with eyes still swollen from crying, but soft, open, ready. And that alone was more healing than any apology. We spoke in fragments, small sentences, careful breaths, gentle honesty. I'm sorry I locked you in, she whispered. I know you didn't mean to hurt me, I said. I wanted answers, she admitted. I know, I said again. And there, at that old kitchen table, with sunlight warming the floor and the house finally breathing again, we did something we hadn't done in years. We chose each other, not out of obligation, not out of habit, but out of understanding. Later that day, we boxed up the letters again. Not to hide them, just to keep them safe. The truth deserved protection now that it had finally been spoken aloud. The notebook went on top, the last piece of her father she still had, the piece she finally saw with new eyes. Not the eyes of a child expecting fairy tales. Not the eyes of a daughter chasing answers. But the eyes of a woman learning that love isn't defined by biology, or blood, or DNA results written in cold black ink. Love is defined by choice, by presence, by sacrifice,